Celtics had an opportunity to come out and win an NBA championship tonight. Instead, they played literally their worst game of the season. All the post-game shows and analysis have wrapped up for the night, which means it's time for Celtics Late Night. Joining me, as always, is Jake Eisenberg. Jake, how we doing, man?
Doing all right. We're up 3-1 in the NBA Finals going back to Boston. If I handed you that before the season, before the series, before the playoffs, you'd be like, what do you need? Do you need both testicles? What do you need? Because that's what you would take, is up 3-1 going back to TD Garden. The problem is we know, we lived what just happened. And man, I got the quote right here from Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd, our group was ready to go.
Yeah. They
were ready to celebrate. I'm wearing my closeout uniform. I know there was some champagne in the fridge. We were all ready to celebrate.
Cigars were purchased. Spoonie came in character as Dick Magnum to playback, which was awesome. There's like one thing that I'm like, oh, at least that happened today. It's that Spoonie went. It was so good. If you're not part of our playback room, I should say the Celtics blog playback room, which is run and managed by Jake Eisenberg awesomely. It's the best place to watch Celtics games, playback.tv/Celtics blog, or you can find the link below in the description. That's where Spoonie arrived in character as Dick Magnum, which was great. Silver lining in an otherwise terrible day. It
was fun, very funny. And it just slowly lost more and more of the uniform as the game progressed.
Yeah.
He didn't really even announce it either. It was just kind of like he slinked away for a second, then he came back wearing normal clothes. And I was like, yeah, that's about right.
Like a snake, its skin. You just shed it gradually throughout the game. I guess like maybe we could start with the fan therapy stuff and break out into what happened in the game, because I was saying to you before we went live here, Jake, but Occam's razor, or Occam's rozier, as we say on the show, like the most likely explanation, or the simplest explanation is the most likely one. And in this one, using that Jason Kidd quote, we were clearly ready to celebrate in this game. This happens all the time in terms of teams that are unable to close out the sweep during Game 4. Keith Smith had this tweet after the game. In 2017, the Warriors were up 3-0 and the Cavs got blown out in Game 4 on the road, went home and closed it out in Game 5. In 2000, during the old 2-3-2 format, the Pacers were down 3-1, blew out the Lakers in Game 5. LA went home and closed it out in 6. Shit happens sometimes. And in this one, it was clear pretty much from the jump, Jake, that the guys just had already won the fucking thing in their minds and were never going to be able to give the performance. And meanwhile, it was going to be a case of resignation or desperation from the Mavs. And we got that desperation, and that was essentially the game.
It's a really difficult mental place. Like all playoffs long, I have been in a constant state of terror, pretty much. And this was the first time, really, I was like actually confident and was like, they're going to win tonight. Like I picked the Celtics to win every series, but my actual emotion and feeling going into every game was one of terror. And I've put this in the Discord. I had the same feelings of like nervous excitement that I had on my wedding day, when I go to like music festivals, when I know it's going to be some monster day. The expectations of joy and happiness are so high. I get this like very intense nervousness where I like multiple nervous poos. Like
it's sure if you're going to mention the poos.
No, we got to give the people the facts here. And so like I was like, well, this should be no different. So unfortunately, this was slightly more out of our control. But just that's what I mean. Like from a mental perspective, you win 3 games in a row and you've been so clearly the better team. Like some of the games have come down to the wire a little bit because of some late game fourth quarter or letting go of the rope stuff, but it's like very clear all the stuff that everyone talked about as far as advantages go in the series have been advantages for the Celtics even without Kristaps Porzingis. And in that Game 3, Tillman honestly in this game we'll get into, but like he was fine. But just mentally, we've beat this team 3 games in a row. They can't deal with us on either end, really. And so mentally, like, why would Game 4 be any different? So I understand the mental side of that being like kind of hard to wrap your head around. Everyone's popping the champagne. They literally have to have champagne in the back room. I guarantee you, they're seeing the championship celebrations in the tunnels and stuff like that. So, which is you just have to. And the opposite thing happened in the Pacers series, a little bit different in the finals. But Rick Carlisle talking about the fact that they're preparing for a celebration on your home floor should make the blood boil of the team. Maybe it made the blood boil of the Mavs a little bit more than the Pacers. I think it's just more the Celtics weren't quite. They won 10 fucking games in a row. Why should we lose one now?
Yeah, and we mentioned it, I think, before the game as well. Like Minnesota, like their desperation helped them avoid the sweep against the Mavs in the prior round as well. Like it just happens more often than not that it's a gentleman's sweep instead of a sweep when you get to that 3-0 hole there, especially the deeper you get into the playoffs. So it's just what is more commonly occurring, and it's occurring again in this case, it seems. Even if we do lose Game 5, obviously I'll be upset, but really, like I would expect them then to go and close it out in Game 6. So I'm so disappointed because this day you wake up and you're like, today's the day. Cigars were bought, champagne was cooled. I'm talking like specifically in my case as well. And then it just doesn't happen. It's crazy disappointing, but like you got to zoom out, and we have the benefit of that, like not going live immediately. I mean, we do with instant reactions, we go live instantly, but then we've got this nice little break to digest what actually happened before we go live for late night. And it does allow you to just sort of cool down and zoom out and get some proper perspective on it. We got the split on the road, Jake, speaking of the proper perspective. Now we go home with a chance to get the title on our home floor, win in front of our home fans, in front of a raucous Garden crowd where you sort of expect the proper preparation and approach to be undertaken by the Celtics. Obviously speculating there, but like this is just how it goes. I don't know what else to say.
Jake, it's time to take the hat off, I think, from Mary Poppins. The hat. We did a poll. We did a poll in the playback room. Do we need to change what we're doing here? Like, do we need to overreact to one loss? I think is the important thing for both the Celtics and all of the things that everyone's doing at home from a superstition perspective. What kind of socks are you wearing? What's your routine been? Like, none of us are perfect. The universe is not going to go the way that we expect every day. So I think don't overreact to one loss. I think keep doing what we're doing. Everyone from a fan perspective, keep doing what you're doing. If we lose Game 5, then we can start to look at bigger adjustments. And I think that flows right into the Celtics. Al Horford talked about how we haven't had to do any adjustments really in this series at all. And I'm not sure they do. I really think it was a mentality thing. And it's hard. Losing like this almost makes it hard to analyze because it's like, what did Dallas do? I don't even know because the game was like over immediately. I do think that they stayed in front of the Celtics better on the perimeter, but was that because like the Celtics weren't bringing the necessary focus on those drives? Their spacing was awful at times in the first quarter and the second half. Dropping balls, terrible turnovers, rebounding was awful. Like very controllable margin stuff that they've been really, really good at was just not there. And that's not schematic. That's not a adjustment thing that the Dallas did getting to loose balls. There was definitely a shot making element of it. Lively hits a corner three. Like that was quite emblematic of like how things were going quite early. Celtics could not get a call. The ball just would not go in. It would not go in. And they let that bleed in. And then not just as like that impact your defensive intensity, that just makes it hard to defend. The Celtics have been awesome in transition in this series all year long. Best transition defense team in the NBA. But eventually the dam is going to break if you just cannot score. It becomes demoralizing. Plus the added mental load of where you're at in the series. And that just snowballed. And they just could not find a way. And everyone played like shit, I thought, except for Tatum early.
Tatum was good and aggressive in the first half, and the whole playoffs, really, we've been celebrating. I feel like I'm repeating myself here. I probably am, but the fact that the Celtics haven't let their poor shooting at times affect their defensive intensity and their process on that end. And you basically just said it, Jake. Like, that's exactly what happened tonight. And even Tatum, who was good early, waned gradually as the game went on. On the transition stuff, earlier in the series, I think even up until the prior game, the Mavs were averaging in sort of the high 60s in points per play in transition per cleaning the glass. In this game, 172.7 points per play in transition, and that's factoring out, as cleaning the glass does, that's factoring out garbage time. So in all the moments that mattered in this game in transition, very, very efficient from the Mavs, and it was Boston who averaged 66.7 points per play in transition. So just dog shit.
Bro, they were 29.7% from the field in the first half. That is garbage. That is like so bad for the best offense in the NBA. So bad for a team that has like walked all over the Mavericks quarter after quarter in this series. So it's like back to what you're saying about Akham's Rozier. The simplest explanation is like they just fucking sucked, and they're going to be better in the next game.
Yeah, and like, you know, I'm looking forward to listening to the Dunker spot and getting the more tactical assessment of it. But, you know, I'm always wary about bringing this sort of stuff to these shows and just saying, hey, they just didn't try hard enough, just didn't play hard enough, man, because it's kind of a cliche and it's a bit of a cop-out. But, like, you could see it watching the game. Like, the Mavs, desperation, they're moving their feet, they're sliding their feet, they're getting back on D, they're staying in front of guys. Luka had his best defensive game in a very long time, at least this series, and just complete opposite feet in mud from the Celtics. And to a large degree, that has to be considered as, like, the majority of the cause for how this game resulted. But, I mean, maybe the best way to ask about like the evaluation of the Celtics is who wasn't shit in this game, Jake?
Sam Hauser.
Okay.
What wasn't shit? I mean, part of his stat line is because he went, what did he go in the second half? It was 4 for 5 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3 in the second half. He was 1 for 2 in the first half from 3. That's like kind of important. The fact that he's able to be hot from 3. I was kind of hoping Pritchard was going to get going in garbage time just to give himself some confidence going into the next game. But I don't know, man. Pritchard has hit one shot in minutes that matter so far, and it was the half-court buzzer beater. Huge shot, one of the biggest shots of the series. But outside of that, he hasn't been able to do anything. Even in garbage time, he was kind of a mess. But Hauser was excellent. Knocking down shots. He was like kind of hustling, getting after it. He had the patented Ben Vallis mellow pump fake pull up.
Love to see it.
Love to see that. So I think Tatum first half, 15 points in the first half. What's crazy, 0 points in the second half. 15 points in the first half, 4 for 9 from the field, 6 for 6 from the free throw line. He was fine. The problem was Jaylen Brown has now not turned up to 2 first halves in a row. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to address New York Forever in the chat here. Just so you know, I think you guys lost in the second round to the Indiana Pacers, have not made the conference finals longer than anyone can really count back. Kind of one of the most embarrassing franchises in a big market, like in any sport. Like the fact that you've been so bad for so long, despite having all of the advantages of one of like the best cities in the world, is frankly pathetic. But shout out to you for trolling a chat where the Boston Celtics are up 3-1, about to clinch the most NBA titles out of any franchise. Shout out to you, though. Appreciate you stopping by and giving us some engagement. But if you keep being annoying in the chat, maybe provide some real value in the chat. Otherwise, we're just going to ban you. But you're just kind of annoying. Anyway, Ben, anyone else not suck today?
I mean, yeah, this New York fan sucks. An overrated city, New York forever. I challenge you to introduce an intelligent thought to the chat. Let's see if you can do that, buddy. Otherwise, we will ban you. But thanks for the engagement. Did anyone else not suck? I mean, that's a hard question to answer now that we've covered Sam Hauser. Tillman, like our bigs were awful in this game. We got nothing from them. Al had 1 field goal attempt in this one. If there's one reason why the suffering of now having to wait 2 days before the next game, it's that Al just gets a little bit more rest, even though we kind of landed on the notion that maybe wasn't going to be a factor at this point in the postseason for Al. Maybe it was tonight. Tillman, I think he still held up pretty well on Luka the majority of the time. This is going to be a tough one to rewatch, but I'm at least going to dial back rewind those Tillman defensive possessions, because I thought he was pretty good on that side of the court. But like, man, the stock exchange, they were terrible. Drew Holiday missed some crazy makeable layups. It was very much like worst portion of the season version of Drew Holiday, where we're like, oh man, like maybe Marcus was better. Like that I'm not saying I've gone back there in my mind fully, if at all, but it was just a snippet of that version of Drew in this game. Derek was no good. was Butterfingers all round. So many like semi-snatched rebounds and then losing the ball over the baseline. I think I can count 10 times we just fumbled the ball over the baseline in this game. And that is so indicative of the guys not having the right like sort of engagement mentally in the game as well. So I know you asked me who didn't suck, but it's just so easy to foray into who sucked because it was kind of everybody.
Well, I think didn't suck. We got to really focus in on the words here. And I think you can put Tillman into that category. I don't think he sucked. So I think that's fair. But other than that, I'm not sure if Horford sucked, but if we're going to rank the suck, I'd probably have Jalen at the top, Drew, Derek, Pritchard, Horford, Tillman. And then Hauser was good. So yeah, if I'm going to do it that way, that's maybe a better way to do it. Because I think Jalen has been so awesome in these playoffs. And so you got to hold him to a higher standard if he wants to. I'm going to hold myself back from that conversation. But the expectation that he set for himself is much higher than he played tonight in the first half. Had his patented something he's really gotten rid of, like off-ball defense-wise, but Tillman was guarding Luka. He helped off, I want to say, Exum or someone, and Tillman had him, dude. Like, the game plan has always been make Luka take these tough twos, and and he was making tough twos. That part was fine. Jalen was in like no man's land. If you're gonna help, come and help. He was like in the middle of the lane guarding no one, and then it was an easy pass for Luka out to the wing, which led to a 3, and that was like quite emblematic of how the game was going. It's like maybe effort's not the right word in these situations. It's more like necessary focus. Like, you got to be locked the fuck in. Like, this Mavericks team is good. Like, this Mavericks team is really good. There's a reason they're in the NBA Finals. Luka Doncic is one of those players in the NBA. You have to bring the necessary level of focus. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I thought I noticed that a few times, this sort of lazy version of help, or like more unaware version of help, where defenders were like, and it was Jalen a few times, like you say, like, should I help? Who should I be helping off? Should I come over now? When should I? Like, the sort of indecisiveness of the help defense. And it was such a far cry from what we're used to, like the just decisiveness and for lack of a better term, like locked-inishness of our defense so far. Again, I'm sorry, it just goes back to the lack of mental engagement. Like, clearly, all these things are very symptomatic of a team that's maybe celebrating already in their minds, and we're very much guilty of that as well. Jalen, it's so shocking to see Jalen play that way, because we did a pod with Greeny yesterday, and the overarching theme was like, okay, it's taken right up until the Celtics have gone up 3-0 in the finals, but now I'm like, I am fully bought in. I fully trust everyone, Jalen especially, and all of the bigger pods who have been dragging their feet on the Celtics all season. We're all doing the same thing. I think Kevin O'Connor even said, I've got egg on my face as far as his take on the series prior to the finals. There was a lot of that going on across all the pods. Everyone was finally bought in. Everyone was just expecting to rock up and just see the Celtics win the title today, including the Celtics themselves. And then for Jalen to be leading the shit list of players on our roster in this game it's kind of shocking.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's what's been so impressive about this team, has been the level of focus, has been the level of discipline. In this series in particular, man, the game plan discipline has been flawless. Like, you're not showing help. Like, the only one that's showing help is Drew Holiday, because he's like a wizard and can like get into the lane and recover and get deflections. On Luka, on Kyrie, trusting the game plan, trusting that if you limit their threes and you make them take tough twos and you go at them with force on the other end, like Luka, he's going to wear down by the fourth quarter. All of that has been so impressive, and they completely abandoned a ton of it. And you got to give the Mavericks credit as well for not, lying down. Luka Doncic again, like, his explosion in the first half was enough this time, because the Celtics weren't able to respond. But I anticipate everything that was true up until tonight is still true. One game, one loss. The matchup is still really good. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown can still beat Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, and Luka Doncic off the bounce. They have to be more disciplined with the matchups they're attacking, like they have been, and just get back to it.
Yeah, Kyrie and Luka were incredible tonight, and just for whatever reason, and it's going to be a painful rewatch, but I'll do it. I want to try and understand better why they were less of a glaring hole defensively from the Mavs defensive perspective in this one. But yeah, their role players, I don't know, like, are you worried at all that maybe they found something with Dante Exum, for example, that like he played really good minutes for them off the bench, and is that something they can carry forward in this series, or do you still see the whole thing as more of a general like anomaly?
Like, I think the simple, smooth brain take is like, yeah, they've got the confidence now. They're feeling good. But like, you have to, again, just take the step back and be like, that's just not how it works, really.
Yeah.
Like, what happens in one game does not carry over to the next game. It's just not how it works in a series. Like, because if that is, how many times do teams go up 2-0, they lose game 3? Like, that's like one of the most common trends of a series. And because you win 2 games, everyone's like, oh my God, they got no answers. And that's why a lot of people expected. That's what's so funny about this series. Everyone expected kind of the Mavs to bounce back and win game 3. And then in this one, everyone kind of expected the Celtics to continue to roll in game 4 when the games aren't connected, really. But what is true still is the larger sample size of who the Celtics are, and the larger sample size of how the Celtics can attack this matchup. Not just going into this series, going back to, like, I was thinking about that March matchup and how so many national pods were like, you have to throw it out. A lot of that stuff is still there, man. Gafford's still playing a lot of minutes. PJ Washington's playing minutes. Luke is playing a lot of minutes. And a lot of the success for the Celtics is, can you beat your man off the dribble one-on-one? And even going back to the Wizards days, Tatum has been cooking Gafford one-on-one on the perimeter for multiple years now. All of that is still true. All of that does not go away going into the next game. But like, I'm sure Dante Exum feels better today. I'm sure Maxi Kleber feels better today now that he hit a shot. But here's the thing. You miss your first shot in the Garden, all of that goes away.
Totally. Yeah. And like, the guys are going to be fired up. Clearly, they're going to be like, for lack of a better way of describing it, they're going to be like, oh, okay. All right, that's how it's going to be. We've really got to go out there and get it done. And you expect a better performance from everyone and a sense of awareness of the moment. Like, okay, we're at home. This is really our shot. We've really got to close this thing out. So, yeah, and the same, relatively applies for those role players where they can get shook more easily if they miss their first couple of looks in the Garden. So, fully agree there. Grandy had this tweet just now, just sticking with some of the copium stuff. He said, what do the last 3 Celtics championship teams have in common? 2008, 86, and 84. All 3 lost a closeout game on the road, then came back to Boston to win the title in the next game. And I'm not saying like just history obviously repeats itself verbatim like that, but
I hate that stuff though.
Well, we're talking about precedents and the likeliness of this not being a sweep, and that occurred. So eventually you look back to history to see what might reoccur in the future, and there's a lot of that going on. Oh
yeah, and this goes back to like the superstition thing. Like, it's fun to talk about wearing the right hat and the right whatever before a game, and like hearing those sorts of stats brings out the superstition in my body where I'm like, I don't want to hear it. Don't jinx it. Like,
yeah. Yeah, I hear.
You know what I mean? Yep. But like, the reality is like, there's a reason that is probably true. And if you were probably to zoom out even more and just like track that over a ton of championship teams, like, that would be a very common thing. Is that you lose a game on the road, you come home and close it out. Like, it's just something that happens over and over again through history. It's just like in the moment reading like the big stats. It's like 86% of teams that go up 2-0 win the series. 100% of teams that go up 3-0 win the series. You don't want to hear it, but it's true. And there's a reason it's true, because the better team is often up 2-0. The better team is often up 3-0. And so all of it's true, even if it makes my body recoil in terror.
I feel exactly the same way. Doing these shows really helps. I always feel better after brutal losses doing these shows and reading everyone's comments in the chat. And we get a lot of comments after shows like these, which we often label fan therapy, that it makes them feel better as well. So hopefully there's a sense of catharsis there for everyone involved.
Well, I know, and it's funny. Like, we finished game, like we're in the playback room and like we'll do immediate reactions, and we're on the fence about doing the late night. But I know we owe it to everybody.
Yeah,
to be doing it, and it always does end up feeling better to talk through it a little bit. But we owe it to everybody. We can't just ride the wins. We don't want it. We can't be front runners. We can't be fair weather fans. If we want to pod after a 10-game winning streak in the playoffs, we have to pod after the losses as well.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, like, how can we expect anything out of the guys if we can't expect something similar out of ourselves, right? It's exactly the same thing, right, Jake?
Absolutely.
Exactly paralleled.
I do have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead. I got nothing. Please.
Peyton, I know. So Peyton Pritchard, I see the chat talking about it. Again, he hit that big shot in the third quarter, bank shot. Should he be playing any other minutes outside of the ends of quarters right now?
He's had good defensive minutes in this series, and sometimes, if for nothing else, he needs to come on to spell Derek and Drew and just like hold up his place in the rotation. From that perspective, is he?
Does he
starting
though?
to? Well, yeah, especially now as we round the corner into the second half of the series and hopefully the final chapter of the series. Yeah, I think you really need to be tying up any loose ends. And if Pritchard is going to continue to be a complete zero offensively, which is like really, if anything, what you need and expect out of him, then he can't play. Similarly, how we saw Hauser's minutes diminished in prior series. Yeah, like that's just how. Yeah, that's just how it plays out. Like if you're not giving what we're asking of you, then you won't play. Happens in the regular season. Certainly needs to happen in the playoffs. Definitely fucking needs to happen in the finals. So yeah, I would agree. Shorten the rotation because offensively he's just completely like switched off at the moment.
Yeah, it's tough because he was shooting really well coming into the finals at 45% from three, I believe, across the playoffs, and Sammy was the one who was at 33% coming in, and that's obviously flipped. I think you shorten it to 7 players, and that's the thing. It's still not 6. You're still gonna spell Al. You've got 2 days off between game 4, 5, 6, and 7. So like, obviously we don't want to, imagine what that looks like, but there's 2 days off between every game now. So like you can load up the minutes and like, let's load up the minutes. Let's go like game 5 of the Cavs series. Like we played the minutes as if it was a game 7 and that was good. And like these guys, and this is what's so incredible about the Jays is like, they're incredibly well conditioned. They can play 45 minutes. And so all you need is Hauser to come in and spell one of the perimeter guys. Each guy goes to the bench one at a time. Whether it's Derek, whether it's Drew, whether it's Jalen, whether it's Jason. And then obviously Tillman's coming in for Horford. We did see a small lineup for a brief moment today with Tatum at the 5, Tatum, Hauser. I have to go back and look at it. It's too bad. Like I like that Joe tried it. But it just felt like it just didn't matter. It wouldn't like what you threw out there today, outside of maybe Kristaps Porzingis, but which maybe we can talk about that as well. But yeah, you can do a 7-man rotation easily when you got 2 days off between all these games.
Yeah, I agree. Derek Lively was pretty effective in this game. Definitely his best game of the series so far. He had 7 offensive rebounds.
We just fucking sucked. 3, dude.
Well, yeah, and I get like the rebounding margins are hugely in favor of the Mavs because we missed so many shots. But to give up 7 offensive rebounds to Derek Lively is problematic. And I wonder if going small there with Tatum at the 5 was maybe an attempt at throwing a different look at them and taking Lively and the Mavs out of their comfort zone by going small and going 5 out. Didn't work. So we really just need a whole lot more from our bigs in game 5 there back in Boston. But yeah, again, it's so hard to evaluate this one. Similar to that Bucks blowout game, mid-season where it's just like, okay, that wasn't us tonight, So like, how much can we really read into this? It's unfortunate that this is happening on a much bigger stage, but fully expect the right version of the Celtics to rock up in a couple of days' time, Jake.
Yeah, well, like, side question, like, would you have preferred this to be a clutch loss, or is it better that it was a blowout? I like that it was a blowout. My perspective is like, I don't think that you can take anything away from it from an adjustments perspective because the game was like over immediately. Mm-hmm. So like, sure. If it's close the whole way through, or like the Mavs are up like 8-12 for most of the game and like just win wire to wire, you can really comb through the film and be like, we figured out this, we contained them consistently quarter after quarter after quarter. Whereas this was like, the Celtics shot below 30% for a half and the game was over. So like that, and again, cope, inject it right into your veins if you want it, because I'm selling it, and that's my preference. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. Again, the rewatch is going to be tough. I do want to go back and look at some of those possessions where we turned it over. Our drive and kick was a lot less effective, and we've talked about the malaise in their approach to this game. And was that a factor in that as well? Or did the Mavs actually change something schematically in that sense to take away those kick out passes? That's kind of what I'm most curious to go back and rewatch. And maybe what I'm most concerned about in terms of maybe the Mavs did find something there, but I won't be sure until I go back and watch. Yeah, so sorry, I've just completely lost my train of thought.
No.
Yeah, aside from that, I think I would prefer the blowout because you would hope that there's just a lot less data and like substance that the Mavs can take from that because like, well, you've got like 12 meaningful minutes of tape to look at, and then like how meaningful is that really based on the approach that we keep going back to? So yeah. And far less painful than a clutch loss. Like we were cheering for Walshy to like get buckets.
Yeah, it was fun at the end.
There. Yeah, exactly.
We're like, you know, and then we're, you know, and that's what's great about the playback room. If you guys aren't in there, it's like the Celtics cut it to 32 or 29, and we're all like, all of us had the exact same reaction. We're like, hang on a second, and because we're sicko pieces of nonsense, you know, so that was part of the fun. So like, I much prefer that. I will reflect now again on the blowouts. So I wanted to have a look at like, okay, yeah, I remember us bouncing back really well in those games. So the Milwaukee Bucks loss, where we benched everyone at halftime. The next game was against the Rockets, if everybody remembers that, at home, I believe. And the Celtics won 145 to 113. So they put up a 43-point third quarter in that game. So very impressive. The other real blowout of the season was the one against the Clippers, and the next game the Celtics came out and beat the Pelicans, which was really good win because the Pelicans were like one of the hottest teams in the West at that point. I'm just looking at now if anyone remembers the Austin Reeves loss at home in the Garden. I'm sure you do. We followed that up with a 40-point win against the Grizzlies. Not going to read too much into that one. There's not a lot of losses to read into here, fellas. Mm-hmm. Like. They lost to the Cavs and the Nuggets back-to-back. Then they won 9 games in a row. They lost those 2 games to the Hawks, and they had that awesome game against the Pelicans again and won 5 games in a row. And that was kind of like all the end of the season. So this, even going back to the Ime year when they made the 2022 finals, they were awesome at bouncing back. And I think this team's mentality is in a whole new level compared to last year's team and the year before that. So the Celtics have not lost more than 2 games all year long. I would love if that number was they had never had a 2-game winning streak. No matter where you slice it, shout out Nell in the chat. This team does not lose a lot. It's just fact. So they'll be ready to go.
The most painful thing is going to be the wait for the next 2 days. Correct. And the shift in discourse. Everyone, I've already seen it. Even the Garden report before us, like, like, look out, Mavs, you know, like, the Celtics almost gave up the 3-0 comeback last year. It can be done. Like, meanwhile, it wasn't done, and we didn't give it up last year. We had to live through that pain. So why should we have to revisit that pain from the opposite perspective now? It's a pain.
Yep. It is.
So that's going to suck. But, I suppose we'll probably wrap up soon because it just doesn't feel like there's that much more to unpack.
No, that's the thing. Like, if it's a close win, there's heaps to talk about. But really, the game was just over.
Yeah, someone in the chat, T, saying my weekend is fucked. Yep, absolutely. Next few days, completely fucked.
Yeah.
Kristaps Porzingis, what's your take on that situation?
Good question. Yes, we should address that because the Garden report spent some time on that. Shout out Jack in the chat. How about them Celtics? We figured we wouldn't force you to hop on this one tonight, Jack. But Kristaps Porzingis, I think the only way that he plays is if this goes to a game 7 and they try him for 5 minutes. I think it was a purely just he wants to wear a uniform in case they win. It will be interesting to see if they from a superstition point of view, do they try and not act like we're going to win the game. And so doing something like that, just for the vibes and the focus being we're treating this like any other game. If you're not healthy and you're not playing, you're in street clothes.
Yeah.
I don't think that necessarily is going to be the difference between winning and losing.
Basketball gods, man.
Basketball gods. Maybe if they're up 25 with 6 minutes to go, he can run back to the locker room and change into his uniform or something like that. But yeah, if he's not ready to play, then I don't know if you want to suit him up or not. But I think that's the only reason they suited him up was because everybody thought they were going to win tonight, including the Celtics.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what that threshold is. Can he play? Because on one hand, you're if he could play, he'd fucking play. But if you can play, like, is that the sense of, okay, well, let's save him until the game 7, then we'll really need him. Then who are you even getting at that point? So it's all a little bit confusing. I think today was clearly he was just like, I just want to be out there when we win the title, man.
I do think, like, I from my understanding of this pentaculum remorsus injury that he's got, he's not going to get better necessarily between now and then. Like, it's going to require surgery. But what may happen, he might just get more comfortable playing with the injury. Like, just like anything in life, like, you get more comfortable dealing with whatever you have to deal with. So he might just get more comfortable playing with the injury in a couple of days. And so that might just be something that happens. And that could be a reason where they feel more comfortable putting him out there. Or it's like, you can heal 5%, 6%, 7%, and that's it. I have no idea. Not a doctor yet, but yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think he's going to be out there unless like they need him, and they try it, and like, because I think offensively he could be okay, because like even when he hurt his ankle, and he right before he went out in game 2, he was like sealing Kyrie really aggressively. They weren't able to get him the ball. I think offensively he might be like okay, because he can still space the court. He can still like kind of post up. You're not really moving a ton, right? Like posting up, he's more using his body and then just like going up and shooting. Mm-hmm. It's the defense that I think could be a real problem. On the other end.
They'll just go at him every single possession and just run him off the court, quick, smart. So we'll see what happens there. Did you hear that Charles Barkley announced his retirement on TV?
I did hear that. Very sad if it's true. I forget which podcast it was, but it may have been Rosillo and Simmons talking about like, a great way to get a lot more money is to pretend like you're retiring, and then someone offers you a shitload of money to not retire. So we'll see.
Yeah, he gets the Kobe victory tour as well. Can do the jersey swap after each broadcast. I saw the news, and obviously that's devastating because he's like one of the more entertaining aspects of inside the NBA. But I was like, that's just the last thing I care about right now. I'm so locked into whatever's going to happen with the Celtics. But
he will be unhinged next year, which is probably a good thing. Like, even more unhinged than that show already is. So like, that would be that. Yeah, that'll be great. And so that's the thing. I don't think you can cancel Charles Barkley because
he's grandfathered in.
Yeah, what's he gonna do? You know.
Yeah,
he's the guy.
All right, cool. Well, let's leave it there for now. We'll be back with another pod on Sunday night. I think we'll talk amongst ourselves and let you guys know when we're going to be back. But it's not panic stations just yet for the Celtics. Jake, love your work, mate. Until next time, go Celtics.